Hello, welcome back. I'm Christopher Taylor, Sovereign Harmony, and I did in my last video say I wouldn't be back until the end of the summer. My last video I did on about June 14th, mid-June, and I said I'd be back at the end of the summer to check in, but I decided to do a midsummer kind of review and update because I felt like this week, especially the first week of August, is going to be very, very important. Okay, and so if you left me last, I was talking about the idea of being deeply honest with ourselves and using common sense. And that part about referring to common sense, that is more to do with some of the energies coming up here on the horizon. The deep honesty part, that has already initiated. And when I did that video, that was just as Saturn was dropping back into Scorpio. It was retrograde at that time, moving backwards into Scorpio from Sagittarius. And today is August 1st, 2015, and actually just a few hours from now, it's about 4:30 Pacific time, I think about 6 hours from now, around 10:30 or so Pacific time, Saturn is going to turn direct in Scorpio. And so once it turns direct in Scorpio, that will be it as far as its trek through Scorpio. It'll take till about mid-September, September 17th to be exact, before it's out of Scorpio, back into Sagittarius, and in Sagittarius for over 2 years at that point. And it won't be back into the sign of Scorpio until 2041, so late in the fall of 2041. So we'll have a long break from Saturn in Scorpio. And we've had Saturn in Scorpio, if you listen to my other videos. It started in October 2012, and then it exited Scorpio into Sagittarius in December of 2014, just last December. But now it's back in Scorpio for the summer of 2015. And this is that aspect of deep honesty, really getting real. Saturn is all about getting real. Scorpio is all about the depths and the truth. At the bottom of things, what really is at the bottom of what is driving us in life. And so Saturn in Scorpio is a great time to get in touch with that, although it has been a rather dark time for some of us, especially that fall of 2012 to fall of 2014 could have been pretty dark at times, and this summer is kind of reminding us of that, but in a way that it's easier to handle, in a way that we're kind of used to it. We're kind of experts now at handling heaviness. It's like a weightlifter, you can handle more weight. The more weight you use, the more weight you can handle. And so we're kind of like bodybuilders now, and we're moving some weights. And so the heaviness isn't that bad. And with Saturn dipping backwards into Scorpio these last few weeks, from mid-June up until now here, early August, we've been really kind of reviewing some things we still need to work on. Okay, but not in a way that's too overwhelming, but in a way that is basically just to remind us that if we're going to move forward, which is what we'll talk about next with the idea of Jupiter and Leo and everything, how are we going to expand into our own expression if we're holding ourselves back or held back by the past, or what we think is holding us back in the past. And so that's been the point, but with Saturn going direct here, August 1st, and to cruise on through the last couple degrees of Scorpio through mid-September, that's it. It's the wrap-up. This is the wrap-up of cleaning out the closet, so to speak, so we can get on with life. When Saturn gets into Sagittarius, that's about walking our truth. It's just walking the talk. We can't just sit there thinking about, dreaming about, talking about. We want to actually do it. And so Saturn in Sagittarius is that opportunity. We had a brief look at what it could be like here late December of 2014, right on through mid-June of 2015. It was our glimpse of walking our truth. But in order to do that, we have to go back and make sure that we're not carrying too much baggage along the way. Because it's a journey. Sagittarius is about the journey, expanding beyond the boundaries. We can't take a journey and take everything with us. And so that's the whole point of the Saturn and Scorpio dip back this summer. And like I mentioned in the last video, in concurrence with that Saturn dipping back into Scorpio, we have a Venus retrograde. And so when I did this video in mid-June, Venus was still moving direct. It hadn't even entered its shadow period yet. So it hadn't even entered the area of the zodiac where it would be moving backwards. Okay? But as we sit here now, August 1st, Venus has been retrograde for about a week or so. I believe it was July 25th that it went retrograde. So just about a week ago, Venus started to move retrograde. So it's all about this review in terms of what we value. And when I say what we value, that's who we value, so our relationships, but also what we're doing for money, right? Work and things like that. And so during Venus retrograde periods that we're in now, and again, this starts July 25th, it will end around Labor Day weekend, around September 6th, 7th, something like that. And then Venus will move on forward through that area of that zodiac where it went backwards into mid-October. and then that would be over. But so between now and early September, we're really getting in touch with, in some cases, relationships, job opportunities, and ways of expressing our value that once maybe made sense but no longer do. And so we might be experiencing people coming into our lives, like maybe an old friendship or an old friend we haven't heard from in a while. All of a sudden, we're hearing from them again. And maybe it reminds us of why we let that go. Or it could be an old relationship, an old flame, for example. Those are things as well. It can also be, like, for example, just a coworker of mine was telling me about her daughter. Her daughter's about my age, mid-30s, who's been with a company she's with for 8 years or something like that. Really stable, moving up gradually, etc. But someone came out of the blue and tried to recruit her. And at first she was like, no, this is fine, I like my job. But now she's looking into it thinking, wow, this could be a really, it's a risky step, but it's a new step for her. And I couldn't help, as an astrologer, to just say, hey, listen, Venus is retrograde. People are coming in with these possible new shifts in direction and things. And I said, if there's any way she can, wait till September to make a decision on it, then she'll be more clear. Because that's what this is about. We're a little unclear. We're just kind of getting things thrown at us that seem familiar, and familiarity sometimes makes us, sometimes we can confuse familiarity for compatibility in a way. Like, this job is compatible for me because it feels familiar or something like that. And so just kind of letting her know that this could be one of those things. I don't know. I haven't seen her chart. And so I have to be specific about that. But the idea being that it's no wonder this time period that opportunities are coming in like that. Something that would make you switch streams, for example, switch partners, switch jobs, those kind of things. And in some cases, it's not negative or positive. In some cases, these are destined, fated, kind of karmic, past life related connections. So like this person that came in for this job offer could be someone from her past lives or something, and so we can't really judge it as far as good or bad, or if she should take it or not take it, without looking at other things. But the idea being that this is a time period when we start getting things coming from our past, familiar things that challenge where we are now. And part of that challenge, or part of the purpose of that challenge, is so we can see what is familiar and what seems to be coming to us, and see what we want, and really almost have the presence of mind. That's kind of what retrogrades are. We step back. We have the presence of mind to see, instead of just unconsciously taking action toward our lives and saying, oh, now I do this, then I do that, then I do that. So this is an opportunity for her and for all of us, for example, to just kind of step back and go, okay, here are some options coming in. That looks familiar. It feels okay on certain levels, but I'm not sure. And oh, here's what I want to do. Does this really match what I want to do? And to really see the difference there. And the whole point, with the help of Saturn and Scorpio right now, is to really get at the roots of everything. So any options that are coming our way for new money opportunities, any options coming our way for new relationship opportunities, we're in a really good space. And you might think like, oh, it's drudgery, it's heaviness. We're in a really good space though, when you think about it, to be able to be honest and truthful with ourselves, whether, in terms of whether or not something is right for us. The clarity we're gaining during this period is the whole point of this. Not that we are clear at this time. We'll be clear come September and October. And that's when we can actually take those necessary steps and make decisions. But right now, we're coming into clarity. So we're standing still enough to allow the fog to lift, okay, and to see things as they are. So again, this can be, it can remind us of deja vu experiences, and we can wonder, like, I haven't heard from this person in forever. Why am I hearing from this person right now? Or, again, different ways that we've made money before in the past, all of a sudden opportunities to do that again, okay? Things just kind of coming into our space to remind us, in some cases we've let things go that we shouldn't have, like certain things that were aligned with us, and this is a way to remind us of, hey, this was you, why did you let this go? Why have you gone on this path? But the other side of it is things coming at us that are outdated for us. Like, they were once okay for us, but not anymore. And so it's just to remind us of how far we've come. And so we can say no to those things that once supported us or once made us feel, like we were being, like we were, experiencing ourselves in all of our joy and everything else. So it's hard to determine what is what though right now. That's the point of the retrograde period. So again, we're about a week into it. We got about 5 or 6 weeks left. So hang in there. And it's a really, I think it's a really, in retrospect, it's always a great experience. Some people will end their relationships during these times, But the only relationships that will end are the ones that weren't really working. And that's kind of going back to what I just said, where we're able to see more clearly, like, this isn't working. These are my options, but it's not working. Same with jobs. We could find that our current job just isn't really doing what we need it to do for us, you know? Or on the other side of that coin could be, you know, some new job opportunity, like this woman that I was talking about before. Maybe this new job opportunity is perfect for who she is, and maybe she denied that in the past. And here's it coming back at her, saying, hey, here's your last chance. Get at your truth, figure out what you want to do, okay? So it's just important to understand where we're at, and the reason why, you know, the Saturn and Venus are coming up right now, because we're actually just initiating a new transit, okay? And it's a transit that it's part of a 20-year cycle, okay? And this is between Jupiter and Saturn, okay? So we just talked about Saturn. It's in Scorpio. It's just about to move direct into Sagittarius. Jupiter right now is in Leo, and I've talked about Jupiter in my past few videos. Jupiter in Leo, and it's all about that authentic expression, expanding that expression, and just being who we are. So what's happening now, as we just came up here in late July, and it will last all the way until about late May, early June of 2016, it's going to be a square 90-degree aspect, which is a challenging aspect between Jupiter and Saturn. So Jupiter right now is in late Leo, the last couple degrees of Leo, and Saturn's in the last couple degrees of Scorpio, so that forms a 90-degree angle. And so they're kind of just initiating the square that will kind of go back and forth, and then it'll end itself around, again, next May, late May, early June of 2016. But all we care about right now is the portion that we're dealing with here. It's actually going to end in different signs, and I'll touch on that a little bit at the end of the video. But right now it's in that between that Leo, Jupiter and Leo, and Saturn and Scorpio. When it ends, it will be Jupiter in Virgo, Saturn in Sagittarius, which is a different kind of energy. But the point is, Jupiter is all about expansion and moving forward. Saturn is always all about consolidation and standing still and assessing. And so when these clash, when they're in an energy that clashes, it's almost like putting your foot on the gas pedal and the brake at the same time, you know, and it's like hard to know if we're supposed to grow or contain the growth. And so it's about balancing that and weighing the options. And the whole point is determining where we need to be growing and moving forward and expanding into new opportunities, and where we should be consolidating and, you know, making sure we have a strong foundation, okay? So like, for example, that girl with the job offer, maybe this is her having to really jump into that Jupiter and Leo, the expansion of expression. Maybe this is perfect for her. But then again, maybe it's time to consolidate and pull back, and hold to her truth in her commitment to that job that she's had for 8 years. But I can't determine what is the best decision for her. She would have to do that. But that's going to be the kind of tug that she's experiencing, okay? We're all going to be experiencing that kind of tug right here in the next couple of weeks, especially this week. The first week of August is really, really strong because that Jupiter-Saturn square is exact on Monday, the 3rd. So Saturn goes direct, and then they exactly square on Monday. And all the while, Venus, which is retrograde, like we said, is backing from, it started its retrograde at 0 degrees Virgo, and now it's backing into late Leo. And guess what's in late Leo? We just said it, that's Jupiter. So Venus is really backing up to Jupiter, where Jupiter is in late Leo. So it's going to be conjunct Jupiter and forming the same square to Saturn over in Scorpio that Jupiter is, because it's from the same exact location. So in effect, the Venus retrograde is highlighting this Jupiter-Saturn square, which suggests to me that a lot of this tug for most of us, especially this summer, at this point in our lives, is balancing that sense of Jupiter and Leo. How much can I expand and express my true essence versus Saturn and Scorpio? But what do I need to get rid of to allow that to happen? It's almost like thinking like a hot air balloon. You've got to get rid of certain bags to get certain heights. You got to keep throwing those bags off. I honestly have no idea how hot air balloons land, but I know they take off like that. I should probably know how they land, but I don't. But anyway, but you understand what I mean. So it's like, think of like the Jupiter and Leo is like that fire pushing that balloon upward and expanding the balloon, and Saturn is those bags saying, no, not too high, too fast, you know. And so that's what we're kind of battling with, is how high do we want our hot air balloon to go? You know, how high do we want to be able to see? And so that tug of war is going to be very, very much related to our relationships and our money and our work and things, because of that Venus retrograde coming in to meet it all here this week. And so that's one of the biggest reasons why I did this video now, because this week is so important, because it's going to set a precedent for what transpires come September, October. Okay, and I'll go over a little bit. I've already touched on it in my previous videos about what's happening up here in September, October, and I'll touch on it again here. But that's really when the clarity is going to be there. and decision making, and the moving forward is going to be happening, especially October. September, there's still some adjustments. There's a couple of eclipses going on, but we are transitioning, and the big transition, for the most part, is into this more Virgo realm, which I talked about in my last video. It's that sacred feminine versus the sacred masculine, the Regulus and Leo. Regulus is that fixed star that I talked about in my previous video that deals with power structures and how power is structured in society and how it's delegated and the things we value. That, like, the reflection of that is what we give power to. In Regulus and Leo is all about giving our power to great mighty leaders and warriors, and and in the more recent time with Regulus at 29 degrees Leo, which is that amped up last critical degree of Leo, has been the late 1930s to 2012 roughly, and that's when we've given a lot of our power to celebrities and sports and people that are athletes and things, where almost like worship them, and there's a sense of seeing how they're given the power by how much money they have. They have all of our money essentially, and it's because we've given it to them. We value that as powerful, but a new sense of what is powerful is what's brewing now, and so ever since Regulus entered Virgo back in 2012, it's sitting there at 0 degrees Virgo. It moves really slow. It's going to be in Virgo for 2,000 years or plus, just like Regulus was in Leo for over 2,000 years, but there are other planets that are going to be moving into that zone. So, for example, Venus retrograde, like I talked about in my last video, it stopped and moved backwards right on top of Regulus, right at 0 degrees Virgo, which to me initiates this transition from Leo to Virgo, this transition from what we're valuing, okay? Because Venus represents values. And so we're all kind of going through this on a collective level, on a personal level. And now we have Jupiter, like I said, Venus is meeting up with Jupiter in late Leo. So which direction is Jupiter headed? Well, it's headed out of Leo and into Virgo, and it's going to be entering Virgo 10 days from now, August 11th, and it'll be in Virgo all the way until mid-September of 2016. So over a year of Jupiter in Virgo. So Jupiter is going to be in mid-August expanding that Regulus aspect, okay? All while Venus still has to come back over that, because Venus is retrograde now. It'll have to come back through that zone in October, and so that zone of 0 degrees Virgo is getting pretty lit up by certain planets, and it's just reflecting this idea of our transition that we're heading in society. And so it's just important that this week we really concentrate on what it is inside of us that we really want to express, and how we can contain that in a way, like just kind of like the hot air balloons, like in a way that we're not too dangerously rising through the air into outer space, or exploding the balloon before it gets here because of the air pressure, but but we still want to have fun. We still want to be able to get as high as we want. We don't want to be in a hot air balloon dragging the ground. We want to be up in the air. That's the whole point. Or else why would we go in the hot air balloon, right? So it's about that kind of balance. And again, with Saturn and Scorpio, what those bags are doing, essentially has to do with getting at anything that's blocking us from truly being who we are. It's that simple. In most cases, we're our own worst enemy. We attract people into our lives that prevent us from being who we are, because we don't think we deserve it. And it's that deservingness, that worthiness. And when Venus is retrograde like it is now, we are going through an overview process and a review process of how and where we're worthy, which is where this idea of opportunities for jobs and money and relationships come in, because when we're deciding between those things, what we're really saying is, I am worthy of this, I am not worthy of that. And so this is a way to reset our sense of worthiness, and to know that worthiness is a choice, and we can choose to be worthy or we can choose to be unworthy. And if we keep on choosing to be unworthy in the ways we have, then we're going to keep getting what we keep getting, right? So this is an opportunity for the reset button on worthiness, okay? And so it is, like I said, this week is going to set that precedent. So whatever happens this week is going to, whatever little decision, they might seem like little decisions, but they'll have ripple effects, okay? So being careful with our relationships, being careful with our job choices, being careful with how we spend our money. These are really important things to just note now this week, because it's by October we'll know exactly what we planted, kind of what we've been setting forth in motion, because October will give us a little bit of the present. It'll be the present moment of what we've created, and that's what that will be. So very important to understand that. So back to that shift into Virgo energy. As we move into September, early September, Venus will finally go direct, okay, and it'll be moving forward by early September. Then we're going to have a couple of events going on, things like around September 12th, I think, there's going to be a solar eclipse in Virgo. So voila, eclipses, super powerful times, and here it is in Virgo, in that sign I just said that we're trying to transition into, okay? And that will be followed by a Mercury retrograde in Libra, okay? And Libra is a sign that Venus rules, so that's a little confusing. But if you have a Venus retrograde, then like the aspects of the sign of Libra are kind of up in the air for review, right? And this is our relationships, this is what we value, things like that. And with Mercury going to go retrograde in mid to late September into early October, it's interesting that we're kind of reviewing Venetian qualities, and then we're going to be reviewing on a mental level the sign ruled by Venus, Libra. So this greater period of a few months is all about making sure that we are relating to others in the most authentic way possible, and forming relationships with others that support us and don't hinder us. Because like I said, we are the ones that attract those people into our lives, that prevent the expansion of our hot air balloon going up in the air, that act as extra sandbags holding everything down into place. And it's not their fault. They've been hired by you and by me and by whoever hires them and brings them in. It's just an energetic kind of attraction thing. And so learning how to navigate our own connections is really what this whole greater period is about. So the second half of the summer really has that flavor to it, with the Venus retrograde immediately followed by Mercury retrograde in Libra, the sign ruled by Venus. And then we have these eclipses, like I said, and the first one's in Virgo, solar eclipse is September 12th, and that's kind of just reoccurring with that theme, like Jupiter entering Virgo, Venus retrograding at 0 degrees Virgo, Regulus in Virgo. We're transitioning to a more feminine aspect, a more feminine valuing of power. So power in a feminine way, okay? And that's a little bit more fair and a little bit more gentle, and a little bit more related to resource efficiency and things of that nature. And so common sense is another big part of it, and that's part of what I talked about in the last video, the idea of common sense coming back into the realm of power. We can be pulling our hair out about the world leaders and things, because they're all in that Leo energy, that Regulus and Leo energy, and it's not their fault. But the idea of might is right, and the more power I have, the better, and all that is kind of, even if it's still here, because we all still have it in us, it already has no more source. Think of it like cell phones, right? Think of it as if if we've all been charging our cell phones on Regulus and Leo up until 2012, and the Leo plug got pulled in 2012, but we still have some charge left, right? And so some people, their charge is going to last the rest of their lives. Some people are going to run out of charge, and when they go to recharge, the only place they can recharge is in a Virgo outlet. And so they're going to start pulling into Virgo energy. So the transition, like I said, anyone born after 2012 just won't have anything in that Regulus and Virgo energy in them anyway. We're going to have to wait until the people born in 2012 and after are in leadership positions for the world to completely change. Like I said, because we're all running around with partially charged cell phones, and as soon as our cell phones are uncharged, the only thing we can charge up with is the Virgo energy. So it's an analogy just to kind of explain how the transition is happening, how revolution happens in a peaceful way, because it just can't happen in any other way. I mean, a cell phone with very low charge has very little power, right? And so that's kind of what we're left with. And so, but this transition into like a new kind of leadership paradigm, it's coming. It's here literally, but it'll be reflected more and more and more as more people start plugging into the Virgo energy to recharge. It'll just replace that old Leo energy. And there might be a few cell phones that refuse to charge on Virgo energy and just want to use up all their last Leo energy they can, and that's fine. But this is where things are headed. With resistance to it makes it more difficult. With acceptance of it will make it a little easier. Okay, and then so going back to that theme of really understanding the relationships we're forming so that they're more reflective of our authenticity and things like that. So the lunar eclipse that comes up in late September, during the Mercury retrograde, that will be in the sign of Aries, the opposite of Libra. So Mercury's retrograding in Libra, and there'll be a full moon lunar eclipse in Aries, the opposite sign, which is the sign of self. Okay, so this is doing what's best for us. Okay, and so we're making these decisions about our relationships. We're probably going to, a lot of us are going to be leaving relationships behind, I think. By the end of this summer, beginning of the fall, we're going to be leaving relationships behind that don't work. We're going to be, so if anyone's in one that they're questioning, that's a good red flag for the idea that, at some point by the end of the summer, beginning of the fall, we're going to really think, I deserve what's best for me. I don't need this in my life. And the same thing goes for any kind of work situations that really aren't serving us. This isn't me. Especially with Jupiter going into Virgo, it's really about expanding our service into the world. And how can we expand our service in the world if all of our time is taken up by something that doesn't serve us? And so that's this is again common sense. This is the making decisions based on common sense. How can you create a red, a picture of a red circle on a piece of paper with a green crayon? You can't do it, right? Because it's going to make a green circle. So you've got to change the crayon you're using, right? And so that's kind of what we're coming to, that common sense of, well, we've got to get these people out of our lives if we really want our lives to look this way. We've really got to get this job out of my life if I really want to do this work this way. And so coming to those common sense conclusions about things. And when we get to October, it's going to be, time to just move forward with that. And, we'll see where we end up, But it's interesting to note, because going back to this Jupiter-Saturn square, like I said, which again, the first exact square is this Monday, August 3rd. And it will last, the squares will go in and out and last until about late May, early June of 2016. And when they end, Jupiter will no longer be in Leo, it will be in Virgo, like we said. And Saturn will no longer be in Scorpio because it's moving into Sagittarius here in September, right? And so they'll be squaring each other next spring from Sagittarius and Virgo, which is a different tug. It's just like the same hot air balloon battle, but in a different way. So now, instead of Saturn having us get at what's holding us back in the depths of all that, now Saturn's all about aligning with our truth, walking the walk, okay? And that's trying to battle with this Jupiter and Virgo, which is expanding our service in a practical way. And so it's hard to mix practicality in our whole truth, because let's face it, like, all of us have an inner child in there, and that's kind of like the fiery, fire kind of child energy. And when we get too practical, we kind of squash that, right? And so with Jupiter expanding the service, we're getting really serious about what we want to do in the world. Saturn's still trying to remind us that we do have a truth we want to walk, and if we want to be funny, then we've got to be, funny. We can't be too serious all the time. So it'll be another battle, but it seems like, to me anyway, an easier battle to deal with than like Jupiter and Leo, which it just doesn't, like we said, we talked about Leo energy with Regulus and Leo power structures and whatnot. Leo is a very kind of stubborn kind of energy where it's going to expand regardless of what anything else thinks. And Saturn and Scorpio can be very dark, very heavy, and it doesn't care about how boisterous Jupiter and Leo is. And so those energies battle a little bit more than, say, a Virgo and Sagittarius energy would battle. And Virgo and Sagittarius are mutable; they're both flexible; they can deal with each other. Whereas Leo and Scorpio energies are fixed, and they just can't deal with each other. Okay? So I think the beginning part of this right now is the harder part. And so again, why this week is so important, because Venus will be highlighting that. Venus will be conjunct Jupiter, squaring that Saturn. So it'll be conjunct Jupiter and Leo, squaring that Saturn and Scorpio. And then immediately following that, the end of this week, around August 5th to the 7th, roughly, Mercury, coming from the other direction, coming up through Leo into late Leo, will do the same thing. It'll join Venus, and then it'll join Jupiter, and it'll be squaring Saturn again. So it's all kind of coming together. There's a lot of decisions, a lot of inward decisions being made this week, again, that will have ripple effects that will take us into those eclipses in September, into that Mercury retrograde in September. And by the time we get on the other side of that stuff in early to mid-October, the clarity is there, and we know what we need to do. We know what we need to do for ourselves, with our relationships, with our jobs, with money, everything. We can no longer fake it. We have to just be it. And whenever we are, we're going to be looking for those who can support who we are. We're not going to be continuing to create the relationships that prevent it, which is what this whole Venus retrograde is about. It's teaching us what has prevented us from moving forward. So with the sound of that lawnmower starting up, I think that's my cue, since you probably won't be able to hear me anymore. So anyway, thanks for joining me in the midsummer update. I'll probably come back again in September, like I said last time, and who knows, maybe I'll be back earlier. But thanks for joining me, and please share. And if you want to see my daily or semi-daily updates, go to facebook.com, Sovereign Harmony. That's where I do most of my posts on a daily basis, so you don't have to wait for these videos. And that's a great way to kind of keep track of what's going on as it's going on. It's just a way to sum it up in a lot of ways. So anyway, let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you next time. Thanks a lot.